Hello everyone and welcome. So today is a bit of a weird video. I do want to really quickly kind of explain what's been going on. I've moved back into college, and my schedule is not exactly the best for doing recording and streaming and that kind of stuff. So I apologize if my schedule seems very erratic. I'm still trying to get everything kind of in order, and that's the reason why I'm going to be posting up 3 different videos uh, along with this one. Um, so I apologize with all that. It's been even kind of crazier because I just got my car towed. So there was that too, and I had to I'm still dealing with that too. Uh, so it's been interesting recently. Let's go with that. It's been kind of chaotic. Just uh, so uh, yeah, I'm still trying to get everything kind of sorted out, and I apologize for that. I'm working on it. I have also been working on another series that is truly multiplayer, with somebody else, uh, who uh, some of you might recognize from a couple of my videos. He goes by the Music Addict. Um, if you haven't come across him, um, he and I are going to be working on a co-op, essentially, Minecraft modded gameplay. So we're going to be working with that. I'm also going to be, when it does finally, well, actually, when the beta comes out for Planet Zoo, I will be recording that as well. So get ready for that. That will be, I don't know if it's going to be replacing my Planet Coaster series or what, but there will be definitely Planet Zoo as soon as the beta comes out. I will not be doing anything for Borderlands 3, even though I really wish I could. I'm not a fan of Epic Games, for personal reasons, so I will be not really touching that, sadly, for better or worse. But anyways, now that that's all been kind of dealt with, excuse me, let me kind of get onto the video. So this video is kind of an interesting one. It's a game review, first of all, in case you didn't kind of figure that out from the name. But it's for a game that is, to say it's gotten mixed reactions is putting it lightly. So let me go ahead and make it so you can actually see what's going on. So this game is known as Gold Rush the game. It's developed by, if I remember correctly, no, it's not Playway. It was developed by the same people that did Diesel Brothers and a couple of other Discovery Channel shows. And it is by the Discovery Channel gaming studio, if you so wish to call it that. Now, it's interesting because I've been playing this game for a bit, kind of off and on, and I can see why it's gotten mixed reviews. And I'll kind of explain that in just a second, but I'm going to kind of move to a better position for you all. And I'm apologizing about the lighting, but so this is just kind of what I've got set up. This is just some quick show stuff. So the first thing I want to talk about that I don't think is quite fully appreciated is just how intricate the detail can be. Now, I've got a couple of systems turned off, I'm aware of that fact, but the system that I think is most interesting is that you can have so for those of you that don't know really much about gold mining, a lot of it has to do with water, washing out soil. If you are going far back enough, gold panning used water, sluice boxes, all kinds of stuff. And this is supposed to take place in Alaska, if I remember fully correctly. Actually, the game takes place in Haines, Alaska. That's right. So essentially, you take the dirt out of the ground and you put it through a ton upon ton of filters and miner's moss, which is essentially this really thick, almost carpeting-like material that the gold is supposed to be able to get caught in and all that kind of stuff. But in order to do all that, you need a lot of water. And something that's kind of fascinating to me is that there is a pressure system built into the game. I don't have it turned on right now because of the specific save that I've loaded up for you guys, but there is a pressure system that is very, very, very particular, and it will screw you over if you're not careful. That's part of the reason why I have it turned off on this specific save. So for example, this is just a small electric water pump. This, I think, has something like a 35, and these units are slightly arbitrary, so I apologize. I can't tell you what the 35 is, but it has a 35 length, and beyond that, it can't pump any more water. You need another pump in order to get more pressure into the system, which I think is kind of cool. And there's something also that's kind of interesting is that there's different types of like hoses and that kind of stuff, and you have to be careful about that. There's different types of electrics, which you can see kind of here, and I'll go over that in a second. But just going down here, we've got this main supply line that goes back to that pump that you saw above. It's going through here, which is a splitter. One of them's going back over into there. And this one is the medium going, ooh, there we go, going into even a smaller splitter, which goes off into all that. So you do need to be very careful about sizing the various aspects, especially with the electrical cables, because there's two different types, and you won't really know what they are until you get them, until you have one of the objects. There's no real way of finding out. The game technically, that's not it. I can never remember what that control is. It is tab, I think? Yeah, here we go. So there's this journal in game, but for a lot of the mining machines, it doesn't really say, it just says power cable. That's not really, that's kind of arbitrary. Power cable, and I know that these two have two different types of power cables going into them, so it's kind of arbitrary to some degree what kind of controls you go into that. So that is a small gripe on my end. Going along, kind of continuing on, there's a moderately wide range of various vehicles. I am slightly annoyed in that regards though. You see this massive hunk of metal and all that kind of stuff. This is a DLC vehicle. It's probably, I think, the only DLC vehicle. And the DLC, it's the only DLC for the game, includes that vehicle, and like 2 additional components, and that's it. That is literally all that comes with. It's kind of bullshit. The only reason I got it is because it was for sale as a package that I bought. It really is kind of bullshit. So I can understand why people are kind of pissed about that. But on the flip side of that, and just in general, if I climb into this vehicle really quickly, just looking at the controls that I brought up, you have a full set of controls that are very, very specific. Oh, hello. Didn't like me pressing shift repeatedly, but it's very, very, what's the word I'm looking for? Not complex, but like, it's very thorough. There we go. Very thorough about all that. And if I, it's been a while since I played the game, sorry about that. You can see off to the side, like, it shows the RPM, the oil pressure, which you can't really do anything about, how fast you're going, what kind of gear you're in, and a bunch of other info about the vehicle, which if I turn on, which I thought was Z, but clearly I was wrong. Come on. There we go. So now this is supposedly on, and you can see all the info off to the side is kind of updated. So they do that pretty good. And the reason I couldn't hear is because I remembered that I turned down the in-game volume. And along with that, the parts can break. So like this is a broken component of this fuel tank. So stuff can very quickly break. Stuff, which I can understand. That's pretty accurate. There's a pretty good fuel system. And overall, the actual core mechanics of the game are done very well. The terrain deformation uses a voxel system. It's very good. A lot of the animation is very nicely done. However, the one gripe that I have, and I'm sorry that I keep hitting that. that I think everybody has. As soon as I can actually... Come on. And again, I'm sorry that you can't really hear any audio, but again, I've turned it kind of down because it is very loud. There we go. Come on. There we go. And all the vehicles do have, like, their standard, oh, that would be really helpful. Well, not if I did that, but if I actually turned on the differential lock, that would probably help. There we go. Okay, so, all the vehicles have, like, all these special things to them and all that kind of stuff, which is really nice. Now, I want you to look at that FPS number, and also just above up there. And you'll notice that every once in a while, it'll just stop. Especially as I slowly get out of this land parcel. Now, something that's kind of nice is that, so the whole game essentially loads on cells. It's a cell-based load system, or world load system, which is kind of nice. And all the diggable areas, which are called parcels, they're all in one cell, which is really nice. And I greatly appreciate that. The issue is, as we drive along here, you'll notice that it just stops. It just freezes. But the FPS clearly is still running. And that's it loading in the new cells. And deloading and unloading the other cells. Now, under more circumstances, I can kind of brush off if they're like every so once in a while. But if you keep looking up above, you'll see that loading, the digger animation. Go on. I know I suck at driving. Don't worry. You'll notice that every once in a while, it will just pop up again and again and again and again. And it doesn't stop. And it just keeps going. And this area, so thankfully, I haven't had... Oh, there we go. And you can see the world kind of loading in the background. Every once in a while. And that's the biggest issue that I have with the game, and a lot of people have with the game, is load times. Now, I can understand how some people feel about it. I can understand that in today's day and age of the now, if you will, of just having everything when you want it, I can understand why people really kind of gripe about there being a lot of like various load areas. And this is one of the places where you can buy your stuff, by the way, where it just feels like it's constantly loading and it's just constantly freezing as a result of that loading. I can understand that. I truly do feel like their loading is kind of bullshit, pardon my language. And what drives me and probably the rest of the community, the rest of the gaming community that kind of watch this game crazy, is that the devs are active. They are constantly pushing out like little hotfixes and that kind of stuff. They're doing nothing. I truly do mean nothing to change how the world loads. It's not, they're not optimizing it. They're not making the load times any faster or anything of that such. I was trying to come over here to kind of give an idea of just what some of the load times are like, but because this is kind of a dead end. This is a parcel that I haven't bought yet. But the load times are kind of ridiculous. And I will fully agree that they really are ridiculous. They're kind of stupid, they're kind of BS in a lot of ways. But I also find it fascinating. It's a weird case study. Because I want you to think about the loading times that you're seeing here. And then think of other simulators. Now, I'm not talking about like small time simulators like maybe Metro Hustle. I think it's called Metro Hustle. I've never played it personally, but Metro Hustle or any of that kind of stuff. I'm thinking like the big games that have like really massive open worlds that they load all at the same time. Specifically, I'm talking about stuff like Train Sim World, in the various train sims that have come out throughout the years, particularly most of Dovetail's games. And think about their loading times. Think about them very carefully, because they're a lot longer than the load times than this game has. Like, miles longer than the load times this thing has. And yet, I haven't really found that many people griping about it. Which is weird to me. Because when you think about it... Oh yeah. Some lovely spazzing out there. Again, stuff can only go so far. But I find it fascinating that people are picking up on the admittedly kind of long load times in this game, and they're griping about it. And yet they're not griping about the load times that... Oh, I guess I don't have enough money for that. Whoops. Yeah, I'll just fill it up a small bit. There we go. But nobody really gripes about, or at least not a huge amount of people gripe about those games. So what is this game? Why is this game so different? And I think it's kind of a weird issue, because I think I know why. It's because of the whole package. And also reviews. Obviously reviews have a lot to do about it. And for some of those reviewers, yeah, okay, they make a good point. But a lot of them are just, they might have booted it up, made it play for a tiny bit, and they were just constantly dealing with those loading segments. And I do think that kind of affected it, and it affected it negatively. Because, again, we're used to this world of now. And, again, for some weird reason, Train Sim has kind of somehow evaded that whole issue. I don't know how, but they have. But the problem that I think is the biggest issue, people take a look at the screenshots. They don't look at the videos or the other reviews that are being done for this game. They're not looking at the smaller individual aspects of it. For example, this is a signboard that they've got over in the village. And you can see they have very nice little kind of small things. Like they even have a nice little It poster. Missing dog, which I think is an absolutely adorable picture, by the way. And I'm pretty sure is probably the dog of one of the devs. But like, they're really clever stuff too. Like, note to self, bears do not enjoy cuddling. And over here, at risk of gold mining, good luck everyone, stay true and find lots and lots of gold. Just a lot of like small stuff that people don't really notice. They just kind of drive by. Hell, I've driven by it more times than I could even possibly think about. But I decided to stop and just look at this and realize that the bigger issue here is that people aren't noticing the individual parts of the game necessarily. They're not seeing what the devs have actually put together. They're seeing the flaws, which admittedly is an easy thing to see, because that's what's immediately noticeable. But the problem is that that's not where the games really lie. That's not where the core aspect of the game really is. It's in the experience. It's in playing through the whole thing. Now, admittedly, there isn't really much of a story. It's kind of freeform to some degree. It's dig, sell gold, buy new stuff, dig with that new stuff, that kind of stuff. And it's kind of a tedious process, admittedly, because, I mean, there's not exactly a whole lot of gold to be found, even in Alaska. And also the gold is kind of, well, this is what I've got a little gold bar back here if I can grab it. Oh, I can't grab it because I've got this hook hit. I can't speak. Hitch. picked up here. This is a 9.5 ounce block of gold. And if I run over to the bank over here, and I go and come into here, and I use them, I look at the stock, the gold, you'll notice that it's only, it's $42.32 per gram. And I know that it's gram, and a lot of people are like, oh no, grams versus ounces. I don't care. I really couldn't care less. Not really what I'm going for. But just looking at like some of the small things that I've gotten here, sure, that's a lot of money. It might seem like a lot of money, but this right here, took me a good. If I had started out, and to get that kind of money just from starting out, it would have taken me at least 3 days in real time, in the real world, 3 days of off and oning, playing around 4 to 5 hours per day just to get that much. And even then, that's being kind of nice to myself, assuming that I got like really rich dirt and that kind of stuff. It is a very harsh game, which I think it kind of both lends itself and also kind of screws itself over with, because everything is priced exactly how you would expect it to be. For example, you saw how expensive gas was. I think I spent somewhere around $300 to $400, and I only went 19% on this fuel tank. If I go over to where all this stuff is, let me just really quickly walk over here, so that I can actually move anywhere roughly fast. Just going up to like a bulldozer, that's $81,000, and that's pretty accurate to real life. At least I would have to assume so. I haven't done like a massive amount of looking into how expensive an actual bulldozer would be to buy, because I don't really buy bulldozers. But that's the kind of money you would expect to see for something like that, or maybe even slightly cheaper. I don't know. Again, that's not exactly my forte, but it is roughly what you would expect it to be. It is a very realistic amount, which is part of the issue, because a lot of people will see these massive absorbent amounts of prices, and they don't want to have to spend all the time just going and doing all that, which again kind of screws the game over to some degree, because again, it's the culture of now. It's not taking in the entire nuances of the game. It's just immediate gameplay. What is it like? And you don't really get to see you don't really take the time to look at all the smaller stuff. Like, for example, I don't actually know if this is a real Twitch channel, which I'd be fascinated to see if that actually is a true thing, but like, no, people don't really spend the time to like look for that kind of stuff. Like, I'm certain that this is probably a developer, and they spent the time to model a full Dead or Alive kind of thing for it. But it's just, no, people don't really spend the time to look at that, or at least a fair number of people do. Especially since, like, if you look, there's a lot of like clever little jokes, like The Relevant, which is supposed to be The Revenant, which was a movie that takes place in Alaska, I think. I haven't seen it, to be entirely honest, so I'm not entirely certain. But yeah, there's like a lot of really kind of clever stuff in here that, again, not a lot of people take the time to look at. Oh, yeah. That's what I get for paying attention to this and not really want to do it. But I could just load up the whole save file. That's no problem. But I'd like to point out for the record also, this is on the easiest difficulty. What you're seeing here, all these prices, easiest difficulty. Now, it doesn't really change the prices. It changes how much gold you can find. And that's kind of important to think about, because gold is how you get money, obviously. But it does kind of throw off and gives you a better perspective of just how painful this game is for those that don't want to sink the time into it. Which again is kind of an issue and brings me back to the point of the whole need it now kind of culture. If this game had been, and mind you, this game is actually moderately recent. I think it came out 3 to 4 years ago, I think. If this game had come out, let's say, maybe, I don't want to say 10 years ago because that feels a bit exorbitant, but roughly in that range, like around the same time as like Club Penguin or something like that. Beyond the graphics, people would love this game because they would spend the time to actually go through everything that this game has to offer, because that's who we as a gaming culture were back then. We were very, okay, what is the whole experience like? What can we gain out of just putting more and more time into this? And I think we're starting to see kind of a return to that to some degree with some of the newer games like Satisfactory and that kind of stuff, which admittedly is kind of catering to a lot more niche gaming demographic than maybe some of the other games, just simulations in general. But again, it's that issue of who kind of the game is going for. And sure, this game has its bugs and its little glitches, but it doesn't really kind of make excuses for them. It's aware of them in every sense of the term. It's aware of the bugs, it's aware of the glitches, and they've built in systems to ensure that that doesn't really happen. For example, if you're, of course I managed to do that, if your car gets stuck somewhere, everything is able to be restored, which means reset back into the specific area that you're in. For example, I'm in the Rivertown parcel. If I were to restore this right here, it just brings it back there. Same with this truck. And you can restore yourself too. Say I'm somewhere, actually it's going to drain the battery, but, and yes, that is a very big issue that can happen. I just, good lord, I'm struggling. Turn that off. See, if I come over here, or I get myself somehow stuck, I can just click on myself, make sure I select myself, and I can just restore myself. It brings me back to a safe place. A lot of games don't really realize that bad things can happen. Stuff screws up. And they, sure, a fair number of them have these subsystems that allow you to do stuff like this. But not many of them allow you to manually do it in case you think that you screwed up but the game doesn't. Like if you manage to get yourself stuck in a ditch or something, or you've gotten a vehicle stuck in a ditch or something and can't get out. The game won't recognize that as a problem. But this game allows you to fix that, which I think is kind of nice. It has a full system of fixing stuff. For example, if I go against the wrench, yeah, like I can just take off this part and fix it. The full cab of this vehicle, if I have a free hand. There we go. I think I've got a flat, there we go. A lot of these parts can be individually fixed. Well, to a degree, I suppose. Yeah, so, like, the battery could be inspected. The fuel filter could be inspected. I thought there was another part here, but I might be wrong. But all the tires can be fixed, and all the vehicles are like that. They all have individual parts that can be fixed. And you also have to go out and you have to get new stuff. For example, there are just things that you need to kind of get more of to some degree. For example, the miner's moss. It becomes a lot easier if you just have a bunch of them on standby. Buckets are practically an indisposable asset, and I truly do mean indisposable. If you've played this game, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But like, also something that I think is kind of nice is that a lot of the animations that you think would be probably pre-rendered and that kind of stuff is not. Like, this is this actually moves. This is, the animation is actually happening live. And it's coded such that that actually works like that. And sure, the chain wouldn't actually be looking like that, but I mean, you kind of get the idea to some degree. But anyways, going back to what I was saying, it is aware of its flaws. It's very much aware of them. And it doesn't really it doesn't make excuses for them. It makes compromises for them, is the best way of putting it, I suppose. It gives you a way of dealing with them, and which I think is kind of appreciable. But going back to my very, very, very first kind of ideas, is this game good? Well, maybe. It's a good game in terms of showing how different gaming culture has become from its earlier days, in that we are a lot more wanting of the now. For example, mobile gaming. There's a huge market in that, especially for the the microtransactions, like if you've got energy or anything like that. There's a huge market for that because people want to finish it now. They don't want to just wait a couple days and come back and retry it again or anything like that. People don't want to do that anymore. They're not willing to wait. They want it now. Which is why I think this game is so interesting in terms of that. It really kind of shows how different we've become in that regards. Now, in terms of the gameplay, sure, yeah, I mean, if you're willing to sink the time into it, yeah, it's a good game. I think it's a good game. It's an unforgiving game, though, and I truly do mean that. You really need to sink your time into it in order to get anywhere with it. And sure, there's a cheaters mode to turn on, but that's only available in the easiest mode. And trust me, I tried to see if there was any way of getting around it. There isn't. It truly is locked to easy mode only, which I think is kind of nice to some degree. It really kind of makes it so that if you're anything other than easy mode, you really have to work for your money. In terms of graphics, they could be better. Now, I'm not saying that the graphics are bad. Far from it, because I mean, the deformation, sure, it's clearly a voxel deformation, but I mean, the voxel deformation is not bad. I mean, the texturing isn't bad. It's far from it in some cases. But it's not high definition. It's not super high quality, at least in my opinion, in terms of some of the other games that are out there nowadays. Now, does that mean that the graphics are bad? No. Does it mean that they're amazing? No. They're slightly above the middle of the road, in my opinion, because they're not terrible. They're flat. A lot of places they're just flat textures. There's no real bump mapping to them. I mean, sure, it might seem like it, but yeah, no, that's flat in every single sense of the word. This is very well. Actually, the deformable ground is kind of a weird one because that actually does have bump mapping to it. It's got actual proper texture to it, but like this, sure, it's got some scratches in it, but if you get any closer, you can see they're very flat scratches. I mean, yeah, that's actually them having modeled in a smaller area to it, but like a fair number of the textures are just kind of flat textures, at least in my opinion. And there's also a lot of repeating texture too. Like the ground is very clearly just a tessellating texture. I could probably draw out this texture in my sleep. It's very simple. There's no real change to it. It's very clearly just repeated over and over and over again. Now, in terms of the models themselves, while the textures are interesting, they did take the time to model them out. For example, this is a mobile generator. They took the time to like make little squibbles, like call Jack, which is clearly supposed to be a reference to if something goes wrong, call this dude. They took the time to actually like show where all the cables are coming in, how the power distribution is taking place, like even that there's a small bend in this metal cabinet. Like, they took the time to do that. That I just kind of pushed in here. I'm going to throw that back out. You can see that they did take their time in doing this. It's not just kind of thrown together. It's not quick and easy stuff. The models themselves are well done, which I think really kind of lends itself to the game, because a lot of the time you're going to be spent staring at these models, trying to figure out what's wrong. And I mean that in the lovingest sense possible. In terms of the core mechanic of the game, excuse me, I just had dinner, sorry about that. I have a love-hate relationship with the core mechanic of the game. Let me put it that way. It is I don't know how this got down here. It's a very brutal game. And I do mean that in the most lovingly, well-meaned way possible. It is brutal. You really need to sink your time to get anywhere in it. You get a grin on your face whenever you find out that the dirt that you're mining is good dirt. You truly, it just, at least for me, it makes my day when I find out that the dirt is good. But you really need to spend the time to fully set everything up. For example, I have battled with this singular device. It's just a essentially motorized conveyor. Getting it lined up with this other conveyor, I have spent way too much time just sunk into trying to align it perfectly. And it just keeps bugging out because of the deformable terrain. And I understand that. It's hard to, when you're doing deformable terrain like this, it's hard to get good level ground that the vehicles, which are all physics objects, to rest easy on is the best way of putting it. And gravity does a very good job of reasserting itself in this game, which you saw from earlier, where I kind of knock into this and really toss it around. It just locked itself over there from me doing that. The game really does know that physics exists. It does a good job of that in multiple senses. But overall, the game is, I want to say that if the game was developed by a different studio, same people, maybe the people that did the behind the scenes work were slightly different, but if a lot of the people that had come together to make this game had done so under a different studio, I think it would have been a good hit. But part of the issue is that association. This was made by essentially the Discovery Channel's gaming division. I don't remember what exactly they're called. And they haven't come out with good stuff. Or at least, to me, they haven't come out with good stuff, I should say. And that's not to say it's all an issue of loading times. It's an issue of the whole experience, from what I've seen. Which makes this kind of an interesting black sheep kind of game. And I couldn't tell you why. I don't know if the developers for this just came together, made it, and then just left. I don't know. It's kind of strange in that regards. But what they've made here is an interesting experiment, in my opinion. It's a very good way of telling if you're a patient gamer or if you're a gamer of the now. if you want stuff done immediately. You want to be able to progress up that chain within 2 days. So, I would recommend going out and buying this game. I wouldn't recommend necessarily praising it. I wouldn't recommend even going and recommending it to your friends necessarily, straight off the bat at least. I would recommend getting it just to give you an idea of what a game that makes you really kind of sweat and cry for your work. A game that makes you really appreciate everything coming together to make a unique experience. And that's why I say that while this game has its flaws, it's got terrible reviews in some places, and it's got mediocre, I suppose, in other places. I'd give this game a go try it. I won't say it's a massive thumbs up, I wouldn't say it's a thumbs down. I would say it's a go try it yourself kind of game. Now that I've finally finished that, I would like to finally wrap up this review. I don't know how long this video is, I personally don't really care to find out right now. But I would like to say, if you like this review, or if you even hated this review, if you really felt it necessarily, at least hit that subscribe button, put down in the comments, let me know what exactly it was you felt I did right for this, what I did wrong, what your own opinions of this game are. And if you want to see more gaming footage like this, or just other series, make sure to hit that bell icon alongside that subscribe button so you get notified every single time I post up a new video. And as always, I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.